You need to get ready for your Halloween costume. Mother suddenly spoke, stuffing the spool into her hand. What do you want to dress up as? Alice? Or Snow White? Lena stared into her mother's eyes, with a familiar tension she knew so well lurked. It was the same look her mother had worn when Lena had asked about her father's whereabouts last time. Deliberately raising her voice, Lena said, I want to be the White Queen, just like Emil's mom wore at the party last year. Mother's hands froze for a moment. The thimble clattered to the floor with a ding and rolled under the bed, where Lena's old iPad was hidden. When she found it last week, the screen had still been stuck on the interface for composing an anonymous text. Lena hid her phone under her textbook. The screen lit up and then faded again. Emil's text sat in the notification bar. 7 p.m. tonight, old spot. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard, her heart beating a few beats faster than usual. Lena, focus on your homework. Katerina's voice drifted in from the kitchen, accompanied by the soft clink of porcelain. Almost done, Lena quickly replied with a smiley face and tucked the phone into her jeans pocket. The oak tree outside the window rustled, as if it too were keeping her secret. The doorbell rang. Emil stood on the steps, his blonde hair gilded by the setting sun like honey, and he held 2 physics notebooks in his arms. Good afternoon, Andy. I'm here to go over a school project with Lena, he said. Katerina came out wiping her hands, her gaze sweeping back and forth between the two of them. Do you need to go to a cafe for that? The study at home is very quiet, she asked. The back of Emil's neck turned slightly pink. I need to look up some reference materials, he mumbled. What kind of reference materials? Katerina's nails tapped softly against the doorframe. A history of modern Europe, Lena chimed in, the strap of her school bag digging a red mark into her palm. She caught a whiff of the new jasmine perfume on her mother, a scent that only ever appeared on important occasions. As the elevator descended, Emil let out a long sigh of relief. Your mom's been checking up on us more and more lately, he said. His thumb brushed the inside of Lena's wrist, with a tiny 4-leaf clover tattoo they'd gotten secretly last week was. She's just worried about me, Lena said, staring at the flickering floor numbers. The elevator mirror reflected the faint flush still lingering on her ears and the silver pendant peeking out from Emil's collar, the birthday gift she'd bought with her pocket money. The corner booth at the cafe was covered with a red and white checkered tablecloth. Emil had just pulled out the movie tickets when Lena's phone vibrated. The weather forecast says it'll rain tonight, Katerina's text read on the screen. Remember to take an umbrella. Emil poured creamer into his coffee, and the cream swirled slowly in the cup. Actually, my dad mentioned your mom before, he suddenly said. They went to the same school back in the day. Lena's spoon clinked against the side of her cup. She never told me that. It was 20 years ago. Emil wiped up the spilled coffee with a napkin. I heard your mom was the school beauty back then. He smiled, revealing his tiger teeth, only to see Lena's expression suddenly freeze. Her phone vibrated again. This time, it was a photo taken from their balcony with a clear view of the window-side booth at this very cafe. Lena's throat tightened, and the hot cocoa suddenly became hard to swallow. What's wrong? Emil leaned over, his body heat seeping through his school uniform shirt. Lena locked her screen on instinct. On the way home, the streetlights stretched their shadows long and then shortened them again. Emil suddenly stopped. We're having a party at my place next Saturday. I'm formally inviting you, he said, his eyes shining in the dusk. My parents really want to meet you. Lena's fingertips dug into her palm. She thought of the slight shift in the drawer of her dressing table that morning, of the dress she'd hung up to dry that had been touched, of her mother suddenly asking about the address of Emil's neighborhood the day before. I'll ask my mom, she finally said. The night wind blew her bangs aside, revealing her smooth forehead. Emil leaned down to kiss it, but Lena tilted her head away unconsciously. By the flower bed downstairs from their apartment, Katerina was pruning roses. The cold glint of the scissors flashed by. Did you have fun? She asked without looking up, her fingers brushing a half-bloomed pink rose. Emil said his goodbyes politely. Only when his figure disappeared around the corner did Katerina straighten up. His collar's wrinkled, she suddenly said, plucking a strand of blonde hair from Lena's shoulder. The uniform of a private school shouldn't be this messy. As the elevator rose, Lena counted the floor numbers. The motion sensor light in the 5th-floor hallway was broken, and the jingle of her mother's keychain echoed in the dark. The moment they opened the door, Lena smelled the familiar aroma of braised beef. The dish Emil had casually mentioned last week was his favorite. It'll get colder tomorrow. Katerina hung up her coat. I bought you a new sweater. She unfolded a light pink turtleneck with tiny pearls embroidered around the neckline. It's quite similar to the style Emil's mom often wears, isn't it? After Lena closed her bedroom door, Katerina stood in the living room for a long time. Moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, falling on the photo frame on the coffee table. A college dance from 20 years ago. A younger version of herself was wearing a white dress, standing next to a blonde boy whose features bore a 70% resemblance to Emil now. Lena's fingertips lingered on the glass of the frame. The smile of her young mother glowed like mother of pearl in the moonlight. She suddenly noticed the half-cut-off hand in the corner of the photo. On its ring finger was a snake-shaped ring, the same style as Emil's father's. "Mom, what's—" Lena turned around and knocked over the sewing basket. Spools of colored thread rolled to Katerina's feet. "Just a photo from alumni get-together." Katerina bent down to pick up a thimble. The metal surface reflected her jawline, which had suddenly tensed. "You need to start preparing your Halloween costume." Lena knelt down to help pick up the threads and noticed her mother's hands were shaking. Tangled around one of the spools was a strand of blonde hair, darker than Emil's, like melted toffee. "I want to dress up as the White Queen from Alice in Wonderland." Lena deliberately raised her voice, trying to dispel the eerie atmosphere in the room. Katerina suddenly grabbed her wrist, her nails digging into the spot where the four-leaf clover tattoo was. "Why did you take the fire escape when Emil walked you home?" she asked. "The elevator surveillance is safer." The elevator was broken that day. Lena swallowed hard. She didn't tell the truth. They'd actually taken the stairs to steal 5 more minutes of kissing. Her phone vibrated in her school bag. Katerina's gaze immediately fixed on the square bulge. "Who's texting you this late?" she asked. "It must be Hannah asking about our chemistry homework." Lena hugged her school bag to her chest. Through the fabric, she felt 3 consecutive vibrations. She remembered Emil saying he'd send the photos of the starry sky they'd taken that night. Katerina suddenly smiled. "Hannah's family owns a candy shop, right? Remember to remind her you're lactose intolerant," she said, smoothing out the wrinkles on the sofa cushion. "Tomorrow, come with me to buy pumpkins. We need to carve 3. 1 for you, 1 for me, and 1 for—" The doorbell rang. Emil stood outside, holding a flower pot filled with orange roses. "Auntie, my mom asked me to bring these over. She said they're a new Belgian variety," he explained. As Katerina took the flower pot, Lena saw her thumb brush against Emil's hand. The movement was so quick, it seemed accidental, yet intentional. "Thank your mother for me." Katerina's voice suddenly turned an octave sweeter. Lena was just saying she wants to learn flower arranging next year. After Emil left, Lena stared at the roses placed in the entrance hall. "I never said I wanted to learn flower arranging," she said. "You'll need to," Katerina replied, trimming the rose stems. Emil's mom is the vice president of the Vienna Florist Association. The scissors snipped through the overlong stems with a click. "She asked me yesterday if you liked lavender." In the pocket of Lena's pajamas, her phone vibrated again, 6 times in a row. She made an excuse to go to the bathroom and lock the door. When a screen lit up, she almost screamed. A photo of Emil with his arm around a brown-haired girl filled the entire screen, and the background was the Munich Hofbrauhaus. "Bitch, did you really think he likes you?" A strange number, added. Immediately after, a second message popped up. "Look at the comment he left for Sophia. It was on your birthday." Lena's fingers slid down uncontrollably. In the screenshot, Emil's social media account had commented on a post by Sophia.r, "You're my real princess." The timestamp showed October 15th, the night Lena had blown out 16 candles. The bathroom doorknob suddenly turned. "Lena," Katerina's voice came through the door. "Are you crying?" "No." Lena hurriedly turned off the screen, but she dropped her phone into the sink. When she fished it out, new messages were still pouring in. "Your mom knows you're not good enough for him either. That 4-leaf clover tattoo is so cheap." The lock clicked open. Katerina stood in the doorway holding a cup of warm milk, her gaze sweeping over Lena's wet phone. "Did you have a nightmare?" she asked. Lena hid the phone in a towel. "Maybe it's— I ate too much pumpkin," she mumbled. "Silly girl." Katerina used her thumb to wipe the water droplets from Lena's face. Whether they were from the tap or tears, she didn't know. "Emil is coming over for dinner tomorrow. I'm making his favorite beef bourguignon." At 3 in the morning, Lena huddled under the covers, staring at the photo repeatedly. Emil's right arm was around the girl's waist, but his left hand was strangely tucked into his pocket. He never posed like that in photos. When she zoomed in on the girl's earlobe, Lena noticed something. The same snowflake earrings Emil had given her last year were in this Sophia's ears. A ding sounded. The new message was a video. In the dim light, Emil's voice was clear. "I'm just going along with Lena to keep her happy." The camera panned to the speaker, but only captured a hand holding a champagne glass. On its pinky finger was the jadeite ring passed down through Emil's family. Lena's nails dug 4 crescent-shaped marks into her palm. She didn't notice the bedroom door creak open a crack, and the hallway light cast a thin shadow on the floor. The shadow lingered for 10 minutes, only disappearing when she fell asleep crying. In the kitchen that morning, Katerina hummed as she stirred eggs. Lena's phone was on the counter, its screen still lit up with the anonymous message interface. As she flipped the fried egg, she casually deleted the 3 good night texts Emil had sent the night before. "Lena," Katerina called toward the hallway. I put your phone charger on the... Her voice trailed off. She stared at the new message that had suddenly popped up. You bastard, jump off the roof today. Lena's phone slipped from Katerina's hand and hit the marble counter with a crisp clatter. What is this? Her voice sounded like a taut string. Just spam messages. Katerina bent down to pick up the phone, her fingertips sliding quickly across the screen. Scam tactics are getting worse these days. Lena stared at her mother's neatly trimmed nails. They were deleting the messages with precise movements. Mom, let me handle this myself. She reached for the phone, but Katerina stepped aside to block her. Eat breakfast first. Katerina pushed the fried egg toward her. Emil is picking you up at 10. Remember to wear that blue dress. Lena chewed mechanically, the egg yolk sticking in her throat. She watched her mother tuck her phone into the pocket of her apron, which also held a kitchen knife and a shopping list. When the doorbell rang, Katerina was changing the water for the roses in the entrance hall. Emil stood outside, with obvious dark circles under his eyes. Good morning, Auntie. His greeting sounded forced. Didn't sleep well? Katerina's fingers brushed his shoulder, dusting off non-existent dirt. Young people need to watch their sleep schedules. Lena rushed out of her bedroom, the straps of her backpack still unfastened. She grabbed Emil's wrist. Let's go, she said. The moment her hand touched the four-leaf clover tattoo, Emil flinched noticeably. As soon as the elevator doors closed, Emil pulled out his phone. Look at this, he said. The screen showed Sophia's social media account. Her latest post said she was in Munich, but the photo was of the Vienna Central Cafe. That photo is from last year. Emil swiped across the screen. My uncle admitted yesterday that he and Sophia have been seeing each other for half a year, he said, the tips of his ears turning red. Those screenshot messages were all photoshopped. Lena's nails dug into her palm. What about the photo from a beer hall? That was my cousin's graduation party. Emil suddenly raised his voice, then quickly lowered it. Sophia deliberately chose the angle to take that photo. My right hand was actually resting on the back of the chair, he explained. The elevator reached the first floor. Sunlight streamed in through the glass door, making Emil's blonde hair almost translucent. The police traced her using a virtual number, he said softly. She wanted to drive us apart, so she could get close to my uncle. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Lena's voice trembled. She thought of the anonymous texts at 3 in the morning, of the pillow soaked with tears. Emil kicked a small stone on the sidewalk. My dad told me not to. He was afraid it would interfere with the investigation, he said. The stone rolled into a drain. Sophia stole financial documents from my family. In the cafe, Hannah ran toward them waving her phone. Look at the class group, she said. On the screen was a screenshot of a police notice. Sophia's name was blurred out with a mosaic, but everyone could tell who it was. Her uncle owns a software company. Hannah lowered her voice. He taught her how to use deepfake technology to make those fake videos. Lena's latte had gone cold. She stared at the foam on the rim of the cup, thinking of how smoothly her mother had deleted the messages. Emil, she suddenly looked up. Did any of those messages mention my mom? Emil's expression froze. He slowly pulled out his phone and scrolled to a message. This one, he said. The screen read, Your mom knows you're not good enough for him either, sent at 2:17 a.m. That time, Lena's breathing quickened. My mom was right outside my bedroom door. Hannah looked at them in confusion. What does that mean? Emil suddenly grabbed Lena's hand. The detective talked to my dad yesterday. He said Sophia's IP address was only active during the day, he said, his thumb brushing her four-leaf clover tattoo. Those late-night messages. Lena's phone suddenly vibrated in her bag. It was a message from Clara. Annie just asked to borrow my laptop, said she wanted to look up a recipe, but I saw a virtual number registration tutorial in the search history. Sunlight streamed through the glass window onto the table. Lena watched her reflection distort in the coffee cup. Emil's phone rang at that moment. His father had sent a message. Sophia's lawyer just submitted new evidence. She claimed someone used her account. We need to go to the police station, Emil said as he stood up, knocking over the sugar bowl. White grain spilled onto the red and white checkered tablecloth like a tiny avalanche. Lena watched the sugar grains slowly absorb the coffee stains, thinking of the charging cable she'd seen peeking out of her mother's apron pocket that morning. The cable was purple, completely different from the white original one that came with her phone. Lena stared at that purple cable, her fingertips going cold. Emil's hand suddenly covered hers, warm and dry. Let's not tip her off yet, he lowered his voice. Detective Marcus said he'd come to the school today. Hannah's fork paused midair. Are you two speaking in code? There was a soft tap on the back door of the classroom. A man in a gray suit nodded at Lena. The EU police badge on his chest glinted coldly. Lena Hoffman? He asked, his German accented with Danish. Can I borrow you for 5 minutes? In the blind spot of the surveillance camera in the locker hallway, Marcus pulled out a tablet. Last night, we traced the IP address. It came from your home router, he said. The screen showed a network topology map of Lena's house, with a red marker blinking in the master bedroom. That's impossible. Lena's nails dug into the old scars on her palm. Mom was in the kitchen making warm milk. Marcus finished her sentence, pulling up a timeline. Logged into the virtual number platform at 11:17 p.m., sent the go die message at 11:34 p.m. He swiped to the next page. Interestingly, the kitchen surveillance at your house caught her cutting strawberries at 11:20 p.m. Lena's stomach ached sharply. She remembered her mother always taking her laptop into the kitchen, saying she wanted to watch recipe videos. In this, Marcus played an audio file. Through the static, Katerina's voice was unervingly clear. Clara, lend me your laptop. I need to look up a recipe. Then came the sound of keyboard taps. You idiot. Use the Tor browser. Emil suddenly grabbed Lena's trembling shoulders. Look at this, he said, pointing at the metadata in the corner of the tablet. 30 seconds before each abusive message was sent, Katerina's phone had received a notification of an update to Lena's cloud diary. She synced all your electronic devices, Marcus sighed, including the old iPad you lost last Christmas. The school bell rang shrilly. In the crowd, Lena saw her mother's figure. Katerina was smiling and talking to the physics teacher, holding the asthma inhaler Lena had forgotten to bring. Don't let on anything. Marcus quickly put away his device. The forensics team is searching your house right now. We need you to. Lena. Katerina's voice came from behind, the scent of jasmine perfume suddenly growing stronger. Who's this? A new college counselor. Emil answered first, his arm muscles tensing. Lena noticed her mother's gaze linger on Marcus's wedding ring for 2 seconds. On the way home, Katerina was unusually quiet. Lena counted the cracks in the sidewalk, then suddenly felt her wrist being grabbed. You've been avoiding me lately. Her mother's fingers were cold. Is it because of those messages? Lena's pulse raced under the 4-leaf clover tattoo. What messages? Stop pretending. Katerina's laughter sounded like broken glass. Hannah's mom told me everything. She pulled Lena's phone out of her bag. Mom took care of it for you. On the screen was a fake police email, claiming that the suspect in Munich had been arrested. Lena stared at the sender's address. Polyzeta Wien was misspelled as Polyzeta Wien. The beef bourguignon was unpleasantly salty at dinner. Katerina kept refilling Emil's wine glass until he excused himself to go to the bathroom. Lena heard the sound of a drawer opening and closing in her mother's bedroom. Found it, Emil whispered when he came back, showing her a photo on his phone under the table. Lena's old iPad was hidden in the lining of her mother's jewelry box, its screen still lit up with the anonymous message interface. The doorbell rang sharply. Marcus stood outside with 3 police officers. One of the female officers held a search warrant. Miss Katerina Hoffman, you are suspected of. My daughter is being cyber-bullied. Katerina's scream made the crystal chandelier shake. You should be arresting that bitch in Munich. Marcus held up the iPad in the evidence bag. This is the registered email, isn't it? The screen showed the password reset page for the email address Hoffman1985 at. Katerina suddenly fell silent. She turned to stroke Lena's face, her nails scraping across her tear stains. Mom was protecting you, she said, the jasmine perfume mixing with the smell of sweat. His father did the same thing back then. That's enough. Emil pulled her hand away. My dad has known you since college? What a coincidence. Those cropped photos. The police car's flashing lights dyed the living room blue and red. Lena watched as her mother was pressed against the wall for a body search. The pearl buttons on her shirt popped off and fell to the floor. Katerina suddenly struggled to turn her head. Lena, tell them you gave me your cloud password voluntarily. When the female officer pulled the iPad out of the jewelry box, an old photo fluttered to the floor. A young Katerina was being hugged around the waist by a blonde man, with the oak barrels of the Munich Hofbrauhaus in the background. So that's it. Marcus picked up the photo. You weren't taking revenge on Sophia. You were taking revenge on the you from 20 years ago. On the day of the trial, Lena sat in the witness stand and smelled the sourness of her own vomit. The recording played by the prosecutor featured Katerina practicing abusive lines in an imitation of Sophia's voice. 18 months is too lenient. Emil's father slammed his fist on the table, the jadeite pinky ring cracking against the wood. She almost ruined 2 kids. Katerina's prison uniform collar was askew. She suddenly screamed in Croatian, Javoka. Lena recognized the dialect her grandmother used when cursing. It meant bastard's daughter. After the trial, the clerk handed Lena an envelope. Your mother asked for this to be given to you, she said. Inside were torn photos of the Belgian roses, with a message written on the back. He'll abandon you just like his father abandoned me. Emil stopped her on the courthouse steps. My dad explained, back then. Don't. Lena scattered the pieces into the wind. I'm going to study in Munich. In the distance, her father's car waited in the rain, like a floating island. On visiting day, Lena looked at her mother through the glass. Her hair had been cut short. The first thing Katerina said when she picked up the phone was, Emil didn't come, did he? He moved. Lena stared at the bruises on her mother's wrist. My aunt helped him transfer to another school. Katerina's lips twitched. Good, she said. She suddenly lowered her voice. Remember to hide your diary well. Even in prison, there are... When the guard came to pull her away, Lena finally asked the question she'd held in for half a year. Those late-night messages. How could you send them while tucking me in? Her mother's final smile made Lena's blood run cold. Silly child, Mom doesn't need to sleep. Katerina's voice still echoed in Lena's ears. She stood at the bus stop outside the prison, rain dripping from her hair into her collar. It was then that Emil's text popped up. My dad found out. He wants to see you. The iron gate of the villa community in Munich glinted coldly in the rain. The study door of Emil's father was half open, and Lena heard the crisp clink of porcelain inside. Ms. Hoffman, the man said without standing up, the jadeite pinky ring tapping out a rhythm on the documents. I think you know why I asked you here. Emil stood by the window, his blonde hair sticking to his forehead from the rain. His lips moved, and Lena read his silent words. I'm sorry. We're very sorry about what happened with Sophia. Emil's father pushed a checkbook across the table. But some history shouldn't repeat itself. He opened a photo album and pointed to a cropped graduation photo. Your mother pestered me like this too, back then. Lena's nails dug into the old scars on her palm. In the photo, the young Katerina was wearing a white dress. Her eyes had the same look as when she stood by Lena's bed at 3 in the morning now. Dad! Emil suddenly rushed over and pressed his hand on the checkbook. Sophia didn't send those messages. I know, the man sneered. Which is why we can't let history repeat itself even more. He opened a drawer and took out an envelope. Plane tickets to Switzerland next week. Emil needs a cooling-off period. Raindrops hit the French windows like countless tiny drums. Lena watched the water stains spread across the shoulder of Emil's father's expensive suit, suddenly remembering her mother always saying to close the windows tight before storm. At least let us say goodbye on our own. Emil's voice was hoarse. His father glanced at his watch. 10 minutes. There are surveillance cameras in the garage. Under the oak tree, Emil's handkerchief was already soaked through with rain. I don't have to leave, he said, taking Lena's hand and pressing it to his chest. My aunt said she can take us in. Lena felt the pendant around his collarbone, the one she'd bought with her summer job money last year. Your dad will cut off your tuition, she said, rain and tears mixing in her mouth. Just like my mom cut off my anti-anxiety medication. The surveillance camera in the garage flashed red in the distance. Emil suddenly pulled off the pendant and stuffed it into her hand. When I turn 18, when I turn 18, Lena pried open the silver pendant. Inside was a photo booth strip of the two of them at Prater Park last year. The photo had swollen from the rain, and Emil's smile gradually blurred into a splotch of color. The porch light of the villa suddenly turned on brightly. Emil's father walked over holding a black umbrella. The rain dripping from the umbrella edge fell onto Lena's sneakers like a sudden stream. As Emil was dragged backward, Lena saw the corner of a pink envelope sticking out of his sweatpants pocket. She'd written it last week. It was about the coastal town they'd talked about visiting together. Lena! Emil struggled to turn around and shout. The sound of the car door closing cut off the rest of his sentence. Lena stood in the rain, counting her heartbeats until the taillights disappeared around the corner. She opened her palm. The broken edge of the silver pendant had cut through the 4-leaf clover tattoo. Her father's car was parked 20 meters away, the windshield wipers sweeping in semicircles. When Lena climbed into the passenger seat, her wet hair left dark stains on the leather upholstery. There's a towel in the back seat. Her father didn't ask why she was shaking all over, wanting to turn the heater up to maximum. The car radio was playing Singing in the Rain. Lena suddenly remembered it was her parents' song when they got engaged. The heat from the towel fogged her eyes, and she pretended to sneeze to hide her sobs. Your writing teacher replied to your email. Her father handed her his phone. She said your essay about trauma is very powerful. On the screen was a publisher's logo, and the table of contents for a pink diary and anonymous letters glowed faintly in the attachment. When the traffic light turned red, Lena noticed her father glancing at the rearview mirror. No one's following us. His voice was stiffer than usual. Your mom, Katerina's visiting rights have been suspended. The windshield wipers swept Sanxing in arcs across the glass. Lena wiped the silver pendant with the corner of the towel and suddenly noticed tiny engraved letters on the inside. L. 1985. It was the same date engraved on the necklace her mother had kept all those years. Dad, Lena's throat felt tight. You and Mom. We'll talk about it at home. Her father suddenly accelerated to overtake another car, the tires splashing mud as they rolled through a puddle. Half an old photo peeked out from under the dashboard. A younger version of her father was holding a trophy, standing next to a man wearing a snake-shaped ring. The moment the garage light turned on, Lena saw a cup of hot cocoa and a laptop on the kitchen counter. The document interface was stuck on the paragraph she'd written the night before. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't an anonymous text. It's knowing the person who sent it sleeps in the next room. Her father paused as he added cinnamon to the cocoa. The publisher's editor wants to add a chapter, he said, staring at the swirling brown show of swirls, about the psychological analysis of the perpetrator. Lena's thumb brushed the engraved marks on the pendant unconsciously. Next to the laptop was a new pink diary, its embossed gold letters glowing like tiny flames under the desk lamp. Outside the window, the oak tree swayed violently in the heavy rain. When a branch broke off, Lena suddenly heard a soft ding. Emil's pinky ring had rolled to the center of the floor. She bent down to pick it up. The water droplets, seeping from the crack in the jadeite, fell onto her new camel cashmere coat. At the signing table for the Vienna Literary Week, the crowd suddenly stirred. Ms. Hoffman, the German edition of Anonymous Letters from a Noble Household, has sold over 100,000 copies. An intern from the publishing house squeezed through, holding a glass of champagne. Die Zeit wants to schedule an interview with you. Lena tucked the pinky ring into the lining of her wallet, her fingertips brushing a yellowed photo booth strip. The photo, swollen by rain 2 years ago, now only showed blurry splotches, like Emil's smile in her memory. Lena, a familiar voice came from behind, with a Munich accent. Emil's blonde hair was shorter now, and he wore the jadeite pinky ring passed down through his family on his left ring finger. But it wasn't the cracked one from back then. The intern stepped back tactfully. Lena noticed the gilded edge of an invitation peeking out of Emil's suit pocket. "Congratulations on your engagement," she said, her pen scratching a thin line across the hardcover book. "To Sophia's cousin?" The tips of Emil's ears turned red. "My father arranged it," he said. He reached out as if to touch Lena's wrist, where a new tattoo covered the old one, a fountain pen piercing a 4-leaf clover. "I dropped out of school. I work at my aunt's gallery now." Lena's Lung Xiao was reflected in the glass of the signing table. 2 years ago, in the garage surveillance footage, the plane ticket to Switzerland Emil's father had handed him was bound for the Zurich University of the Arts. "The book doesn't write our ending." Emil suddenly lowered his voice. "That kissing scene on page 217. It's fictional." Lena snapped her pen cap shut. "Just like how you said you'd wait for me to turn 18. She deliberately held up her left hand, where an emerald ring from the publishing house president glinted on her ring finger. The crowd parted suddenly. Katerina walked over, wearing outdated jasmine perfume. Her haggard face from prison was covered with cheap foundation. "My daughter, Mom's sentence was reduced," she said. Lena's nails dug into the old scars on her palm. She remembered the last thing her mother had said during their prison visit, about how you could even buy cloud password crackers in